And so, beginning today, the Graymore Friars will present for you a series of 8 weekly dramas, each program complete in itself, and all based on the 8 Beatitudes of our blessed Lord's Sermon on the Mount. These will be stories of today, all taking place in a community which we shall call Hanover City. Listen, then, to our first story, the story of the first Beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Hanover City is a small community of 20,000 or so people. There are 3 fairly large factories and a number of smaller ones, as well as the usual shops. And outside the city, there are pleasant, prosperous farmlands. 2 of the men who know Hanover City best are Father George Morgan, pastor of the Church of St. Francis of Assisi, and his friend, Captain Frank Drakely, the retired chief of police. Only the other day I was talking with Captain Drakely and asking him what he thought of people in general.
People? What do you mean?
Well, I mean this, Captain. As a police officer, you have seen a lot of sordidness in your time, a lot of crime. Does that ever give you a sort of cynical opinion of human nature?
Mister, do you know the population of Hanover City?
Well, I should say about 20,000.
Right. And do you know the number of men on the police force?
No, I don't think I do.
23. If the majority of those 20,000 people were criminals, do you think a police force of 23 would be able to handle them?
I think I see what you mean, Captain.
Of course you do. The majority of people are all right. All the men may not be geniuses. All the women may not be beauties. But most of them are all right.
That was Captain Drakely's opinion. Then later the same day, chatting with him in his rectory, I asked Father Morgan for his opinion.
Captain Drakely is right. Don't forget that Jesus Christ thought that people were all right. He didn't think they were sinless, but he did think they were worth dying for.
Oh, I know that, Father, but, well, listening to people's sins and confession, don't you sometimes get depressed about human nature in general?
Depressed, yes. Despairing? No, never. I never despair for human nature because I know what it can do when it travels on the beam of God's grace. When it does that, it can really fly. It can fly all the way up to the moon and the stars. I've seen it happen more than once right here in Hanover City. Take Frank Drakely himself, the good captain. Let me tell you about something he was involved in only a short time ago.
Oh, go right ahead, Father. It started one morning in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Joe Davis. Joe Davis, an all-around handyman, but mainly a house painter, has gone off to work. The children are outside playing in the warm sunshine. And Mrs. Davis, a pleasant-looking lady of 40, is in the kitchen, drying the breakfast dishes. The doorbell rings, and Mrs. Davis goes to answer it.
Oh, Mrs. Staley, good morning.
Through the screen door of the porch, Mrs. Davis sees Mrs. Staley, a neighbor. Mrs. Staley, who's rather good-looking, is about 28.
I don't know whether it's a good morning or not, Mrs. Davis.
Well, come in, Mrs. Staley, come in. You look worried. Is there anything I can do?
Oh, Mrs. Davis.
Oh, here, Mrs. Staley. Come on in the living room. Sit down. Here in this chair.
Thank you.
Well, now tell me, what's the matter?
Mrs. Davis, could you...
Well, yes. What is it, Mrs. Staley?
Well, could you let me have some money? Oh, I need it. I need it badly.
You do?
It's Mr. Westover. He's coming back at 12 o'clock. He's the real estate man, you know.
Well, yes, he's ours, too. A lovely man.
Oh, he's all right, I suppose, but we owe him 4 months' payment on the house, and he says if we don't pay, the owner will go to court this afternoon and sign something to have us put out.
Put out?
Oh, it's awful, Mrs. Davis. The life my husband and I are leading.
Why, I thought...
Oh, we managed to look respectable, I suppose, but we haven't a single happy moment. He just can't make money. He tries, but... Oh, I don't know. He will make it one of these days, I guess, but... Oh, Mrs. Davis, will you help me? Will you?
I'd like to, Mrs. Staley. I'd really like to. Losing your home, why, that's terrible.
I feel like dying.
No, you don't.
I do, Mrs. Davis, I do. What good is life anyhow? You marry a man, you trust him to take care of you, and look what happens.
Mr. Staley's a nice, serious young man. I'm sure he's doing his best for you.
Oh, he is, but what good is it doing me? What good is it doing him? He's just as miserable as I am.
Practically all young married couples have their troubles.
Lots of young married couples have fun, too.
And you'll have yours.
You want to help me, don't you?
Yes, I do. How much are your monthly payments?
$45.
A Christian thing. Look, without any further interruptions, let's go on with the story. It's a story not only about poverty of spirit, but about people. Let's see what happened to them.
Well, it seems that the night after Mr. and Mrs. Joe Davis helped Mrs. Staley, Leo Staley comes home.
Hello, Leo.
Hello.
You had your dinner?
Yeah.
Can I get you a cup of coffee?
No, thanks.
Did you have a successful trip?
No.
I thought not. You always come home with that beaten look on your face.
It probably looks more beaten when I look for a smile on your face and never see one.
What a happy homecoming.
This isn't a home. It's only a house. Look, the only thing that's ever on your mind or mine is money. It's all my fault, I admit it, and I'm sorry about it. I apologize. Anyhow, let's go over the money situation, then I gotta go to bed. I'm dog-tired. Oh, am I tired. Anyhow, here's the list of bills. Payments on the piano, $30. Payments on the dining room set, $32. That store where you bought those coats and hats.
It's not that I didn't need them.
$110. Gas and electricity, $11. 2 payments on the house.
You mean 4 payments?
We'll have to scrape along with 2. We've done it before. That's $90. A total of $273. For which, as the result of 3 weeks' work, I have $200 in my pocket. Congratulate me as usual, dear. Good night. I'm going to bed.
Wait. Leo.
What is it?
Yesterday, Mr. Westover, the real estate agent, came here, and he said...
Oh, I know what he said. He said it before. Don't bother me about it tonight. I'll see him in the morning and talk him into being satisfied with 2 payments. I know we owe him 4.
We don't owe him any. We owe them all to Mr. and Mrs. Davis.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Westover said if I didn't pay him by noon yesterday, the owner would...
The owner? Where the owner?
I mean the holder of the mortgage, the real owner, if we don't keep paying him, would take action to have us put out. So I borrowed the money from the Davises.
You mean the Joe Davis?
Yes.
Mildred, you didn't.
I had to do something. I was desperate.
What? That's humiliating.
I said I was desperate. And whose fault is that?
Well, the Davises have 4 children. They haven't any more money than we have.
They had enough to help us pay for our home. Or for our house, as you call it.
It's a house because you haven't made it a home.
What do you mean?
Look at the Davises. They have 4 children. We don't even have a cat or a dog or a canary. There's no life in the place. Good night.
And there's no money in the place, Leo Staley. No money either.
The next evening, Leo Staley calls at the Davises.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Staley. Do come in.
Thank you. I came to see you and Joe, Mrs. Davis.
Well, Joe's over at Captain Drakely's on business, I think. I don't know when he'll be back. Won't you sit down?
No, thanks. I just stopped by to thank you, Mrs. Davis. You and Joe. Will you tell him I stopped by?
Well, Joe and I don't want any formalities about it, Mr. Staley.
I'll pay you back just as soon as I can.
Don't worry about it.
It isn't fair, Mrs. Davis. I'm sorry it happened. You have 4 children.
Now, don't you worry about it. We just hope that, we just hope that you and Mrs. Staley will be happy. My, she's a good-looking girl, that wife of yours.
Yeah. She ought to have a better provider for a husband.
Oh, you'll get there, Mr. Staley.
Well, thanks, Mrs. Davis. God bless you. You and Joe.
At it first, though. I'll bet you were. Mine hasn't been hot. Well, sit down, Joe.
Yeah, thank you. I won't keep you long. I see you're looking over road maps.
Oh, we're thinking of taking a little trip with some friends, the Hamiltons, you know.
Oh, yeah, a wonderful couple, aren't they?
They don't come any nicer.
Yeah, what I came to see you about was your house here. You know, I was wondering if you might like to have it painted.
Well, Joe, frankly, we were thinking about it. It needs it, doesn't it? We were thinking maybe sometime in the early autumn. And, of course, we were thinking of you to do it.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate a good painter.
I'll give you something extra special, Captain.
Oh, go on with you. That's what you tell everybody.
No, really. If you let me do it now, I'll give you... I'll give you the works.
Now? Oh, why now? Aren't you busy, Joe?
Oh, I'm quite busy, Captain. I'd like you to let me do your house in the evenings. You see, cost of living's pretty high, Captain, and, I've got 4 children.
Yeah.
I need all the work I can get.
Sure.
Now, I wouldn't put it to you this way if you weren't sure that I'd give you a good job, but, that's how it is, Captain. I need the money.
You must need the money if you're willing to work at night.
Well, daylight saving will give me 2 hours every evening, Captain, and I'll paint here all day Saturdays, too.
Well, how much, Joe?
$300.
Well, that's a very reasonable price for a house the size of this.
But, Frank...
Bessie, the place certainly needs it.
Yes, Frank, but what about...
No, I'll tell you, you just go ahead, Joe. When do you want to start?
Well, would tomorrow evening be all right?
Sooner the better, Joe, before it gets too hot for you.
Joe, I'm glad you're going to do it, but wouldn't the autumn be better for you?
Well, I'd really appreciate it if I could do it now, Mrs. Drakely.
Whatever you wish, Joe.
Joe has gone. The evening is almost darkened on the Drakely's porch. And quietly, not saying much, the Drakeleys are rocking in their chairs.
Would you like me to fix you a glass of ginger ale, Frank?
Why, thanks, Bessie. Yes, I'd enjoy a glass of ginger ale.
Much later that same night, Leo Staley comes up the steps of his porch.
Leo.
Oh, I didn't see you there in the dark.
I've been frightened. I was afraid you weren't coming back.
Shh. Don't let the neighbors hear you. Let's go inside. You know that shop Jack Myers has a chance to buy?
Yes.
He'll take me in as a partner if I can put $1,000 in it.
There's always a catch.
Well, he's putting $1,000 in himself. Why shouldn't I? It'd be a cheap investment. I could make $5,000 or $6,000 a year out of it, maybe more.
Where are you ever going to get $1,000?
I just tried to talk my Uncle Hen into lending it to me.
Oh, so that's where you were. No luck, of course.
No luck.
Oh, what's the matter with people anyway? All they want to do is hold on to their money and not see anybody else make any.
Yeah, some people are like that. But don't forget the Joe Davises.
Yes, the Joe Davises. I'll never forgive you for forcing me to beg from them.
Mildred, I'm sorry about everything. I've made everything rotten for you. I know, rotten. But I'll get you out of it. I'm a worker.
Yes, you're that all right. And all work and no play makes Leo a dull boy.
Oh, gosh.
And that's all you can do, stand there and say, gosh. Why don't you talk back at me or something? Why don't you slap me in the face?
Mildred, you're nervous and upset. I'm sorry, and we're going to make out. I'm just going to keep plugging away.
Well, good luck to you, Leo. I'm as sorry for you as I am for myself.
The hot summer days pass. And one evening while painting at the Drakely's house, Joe Davis, after painting all day at the high school, Joe Davis, high up on his ladder, gets dizzy, falls off, breaks his arm, and is taken to the hospital. The next evening, in a restaurant where Leo and Mildred Staley are eating dinner.
I called on Captain Drakely this afternoon.
Did you sell him any window insulation?
We didn't discuss window insulation.
No?
No. I made an arrangement with him, Mildred.
An arrangement?
Yeah. I'm going to take up where Joe Davis left off. Or fell off, the poor fellow.
What do you mean?
I'm going to finish painting that house for him.
How can you do that in your own work, too?
For 5 or 6 days, I'm not going to do my own work. My guess is that Joe was painting that house to make up for the money we borrowed from him. Well, I'm going to pay him back by finishing the job for him. He needs the money now more than ever. He won't have any income for weeks. Mrs. Davis, I hear, is going to take up practical nursing to tide them over. She's having a high school girl in to look after the house and the children.
And you're going to take 5 or 6 days off to help the Davises out.
Well, we owe it to them. And now's the time they need it.
May I ask how, in the meantime, you're going to help Leo and Mildred Staley out?
We have $40 in cash. That'll tide us over.
$40 we owe all over the place.
We'll manage somehow. We're still young. Younger than the Joe Davises.
Leo, I'll give you 1 more month.
What?
I don't mean to pay off all our debts. That wouldn't be fair to you.
Oh.
I mean, well, I'm leaving you in a month.
Leaving me?
I'll give you 1 more month to find a way to pay our debts off. 1 month to find a sort of beginning of next winter.
My old coat's still neat, and it's plenty warm enough.
Well, there's one thing warmer than my old coat, Frank.
What's that, my dear?
My husband's heart.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, the people who value money and material things sensibly, but who value certain other things, spiritual things, far more. For theirs, even on this earth, theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Look here, mister.
Oh, yes, Captain Drakely.
If Father Morgan is going around telling tales like that about me...
Tales, Frank? It's the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
No, you just stay out of this, Father. Anyhow, mister, let me tell you a tale next week about Father Morgan here. How does it go? Yes. Blessed are the meek, for they shall possess the land. It's a tale with a bit of fun in it, too. All about my proud son, George, and the meek Father Morgan.
Captain, I'm sure we'll all be looking forward to next week.